Hi there, I'm David, an Opera InReach mentor, and today I'm here to talk to you about what to wear to the opera. When we're getting ready to go to different places or events, one of our first thoughts is, what am I going to wear? Whether it be going to the pool or going to a wedding, we often have to think about how we are supposed to dress for the occasion. When you think of going to an opera, what would you think to wear? When I invite friends and family to come see me in an opera, the question I get asked the most is, what should I wear? People often have this notion that they need to dress up in their finest digs to go see an opera. For centuries, opera has been seen as a cultural object associated with gowns, tuxes, and the rich. But why is this? Why opera? Why not punk music or basketball games? Firstly, we must address where opera comes from. Opera was born in Florence, Italy in the late 1500s. There was a group of wealthy humanists, poets, musicians, and intellectuals called the Camerata dei Bardi, aka the Florentine Camerata. Camera is the Italian word for room, in this case used specifically to reference rooms where important things are discussed, kind of like a ye olde boardroom. The Camerata would hang out at each other's homes, where they would have fancy gatherings and discuss how they would guide the trends of art, particularly those of music and drama. As this was happening during the Renaissance period, the Camerata highly respected the ideals of the ancient Greeks. They viewed their society as quite advanced, particularly in politics, education, and art. They wanted to revive the Greek tragedy, a form of theater in ancient Greece. They believed that the Greeks had recited and chanted dramas with music. This idea, plus the Camerata's affinity to the popular musical style of intermezzi, eventually led to the creation of opera. So, what does this have to do with suits and ties? Well, they initially intended it to be performed at their homes, just for them and their colleagues. And since they were all rich, they dressed fancy. Opera eventually became quite popular and began being performed in theaters and royal courts, not just in living rooms, with the first opera house opening in Venice in 1637. Opera was finally accessible to the public. This was also when nobles and royalty began financing opera and being called patrons. Though it was open to more than just the Camerata, opera was still associated with wealth. And what do we know about rich people? They like to dress fancy, especially when they go out in public, and even more especially if royalty will be there. Fast forward to the 19th century, the design of opera houses changed. Europe also recently seen a lot of social reform and revolution in many of the countries that opera was being performed in. Rippled from the French Revolution, there was a new type of societal class that became opera-goers, the middle-class people, also known as the bourgeoisie. With the rise of this new socioeconomic class, as well as capitalist social forms, Europe shifted away from patronage and into a more publicly supported system. Since opera was still seen as a luxury and entrenched in wealth culture, going to an opera was a way for the middle class to now rub elbows with the rich and maybe famous. This is a big example of culture being performative, meaning that we act and behave a certain way in front of others, to either adhere to or defy the norms of society. This is why we really try to moderate how we are seen compared to how we act when we are at home. Since the ability to climb a social ladder was something somebody of a lower class could now do, the opera was a perfect public event to try and make this happen. And since the rich people were still dressing fancy, the middle class would suit up and try to fit in and present themselves as part of that upper class. This idea crosses the sea in 1883 when the Metropolitan Opera in New York City was built and opera had a new classy home in America. Due to opera's association with royalty and the rich, it is to no surprise that wealthy American people began to attend it there, perpetuating opera's glamorous, high art identity. Despite opera moving from Europe to North America, we still see people performing the ceremonies and rituals associated with going to an opera. For a time, clothing was a clear sign of status, and when you were out in public, you would want to make your status known. Though classism and elitism still exist today, we see people breaking those barriers daily, and acknowledging that we shouldn't judge people based on their appearances. Think about the traditions in your family. Are there any rituals or routines that seemed strange or foreign to you until your family explained it? The idea of passing down traditions and ceremonies is intrinsic to humanity. Culture is something society creates and performs, so to speak. When it comes to clothing, we dress up to go to the opera and fancy events because that's what people before us did. We are told not to judge a book by its cover, and the same should be of people. No one should be denied access to something based on what they are wearing, and that is true for opera. Acknowledging the performative nature is integral to one's agency within a society, and creating the change one wishes to see in the world. When it comes to going to the opera, leave the performing to the singers, and express yourself in the way you feel most comfortable. Instead of everyone dressing the same, let's try diversifying the fashion we see at events. Let's create space and room for new voices and our own voices to be heard through the art that is fashion. To get some ideas of what people are wearing to the opera, check out @LastNightAtTheMet on Instagram. Before I leave you, I also must point out that opera is not just for rich people. It's for everyone. It is a cultural object that everyone should have access to. As much as opera is meant to inspire people, it is also inspired by the people. Though tickets can be expensive, there are many programs that offer deals for students, people under 35, or people with more of a modest budget. Many of the smaller opera companies offer discounts or pay-what-you-can options. If dressing up and going out isn't your thing, you can stream opera online at home in your PJs with snacks. There are free and paid options with that as well. For more information on where and how to see opera, send us an email at operainreach@gmail.com or leave us a message on our website. We would be more than happy to help you experience opera in a way that best suits you. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed learning about what to wear to the opera.